Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Nealon Not Standing. I am delighted to be joined by former Republic of Ireland international and several other clubs including Blackburn, Burnley, Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday, Drogheda, St Pat's, Scunthorpe I think as well, and I don't know if I've missed anyone on that list.
Barnsley?
Barnsley. So yeah, you've obviously been to a fair number of clubs. All seem to be Northern England.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll come to that I suppose. But thanks for joining me, thanks for coming here.
Anytime.
Yeah, we'll get into it. So tell us about, I suppose, your upbringing and your kind of early days leading into your football career and kind of when you started getting noticed and stuff like that.
Well, I grew up in the flats in Sherry Street. They got knocked down, so we got rehoused over in East Wall. Then me mother fell pregnant. There was me and Martin, my older brother. My mother fell pregnant again with Nikita, so we ended up moving back to Sherry Street. And yeah, I was there for a couple of years. Although, you know, I'm from Sherry Street. I was raised in Sherry Street. I spent an awful lot of time in Ringsend down with my nanny as well. So it's sort of half and half in Ringsend, half in Sherry Street. But I was one of these loner kids. You know, you'd see me in a schoolyard by myself, just kicking a ball off a wall. But you know, always enjoying myself, but mostly by myself. Just had a football. Just loved playing football. And probably around the age of 11, 12, it started to get really serious. People started noticing me and went on trial to Celtic, and Celtic nearly became the club that I nearly signed for, but ended up at Blackburn. Yeah, so about 12, 13 started getting really serious into it.
Yeah, just off air, you spoke to me about being over in Arsenal for periods. That obviously didn't work out for you. You were unwell, but you were just describing some of the players at that time who were part of the Invincibles. Like you bumped into the likes of like Dennis Bergkamp and Sol Campbell. And what was that like? Because at 13, 14, you're growing up and these lads are winning Premier Leagues, winning everything, you know.
Yeah, well, I remember when Sol Campbell walked in. I was in the physio room and Sol Campbell walked in. I just remember, you know, looking at the size of the man and thinking, like, I was a scrawny, probably 14-year-old young fella from Dublin at the time, and I was looking at me and looking at him and thinking, you know, I'm never going to get to that size. I'm never going to be able to compete against a man like that. But you know, you eventually hit the gym, you get bigger, you get stronger, and I think Sol Campbell was probably bigger than any striker at that time. It was a different game back then, but yeah, it was great too, because I was an Arsenal fan and I loved Freddie Ljungberg, I loved Pires. I remember seeing Ashley Cole as well, and you know, although the Arsenal trial didn't go too well for me, it was just an eye-opening experience, and yeah, seeing some superstars, it just made me want to, you know, make that leap myself.
Yeah, because like they're, I suppose, the pinnacle at that point because they were so good, and obviously I think they probably were the Invincibles in and around that time. Yeah, maybe they were going on to be. But yeah, what a team, and obviously they put up with the great Man United sides, and they were the two, you know, to beat at the time. But I suppose how did you said it was Celtic that fell through? You chose Blackburn. What was the reason behind that? Would the family have a say in that, or?
Well, the family had a big say in everything I did in terms of picking a club. I really liked Celtic. Darren O'Dea was there. There was a whole host of Irish lads. Aidan McGeady was there as well, and Aidan was a winger that I looked at in training, and I thought, like, this boy is unbelievable. And I was a young kid. Aidan was outstanding, and looking at him in training, Darren O'Dea, they made me feel really at home and really welcome. And you know, with Celtic, they loved the Irish players as well, so I felt really at home there. But I got to Parkhead. I had to stay. My mother and father come over, and we had the contract in front of me. And it was literally, I wanted to stay in the digs with Darren O'Dea. You know, I was quite a shy young fella, like I said, a bit of a loner when I was younger, a bit socially awkward as well. So the one thing the deal hinged on was me being in the digs with Darren O'Dea and all the other Irish lads. And they sort of said, oh, listen, there's somebody there, but in 6 months' time his contract runs out and you'll be going in. And it literally hinged on that. And I said I wasn't happy, and Blackburn then heard that what had gone on, and I think the YTS at the time was £90 a week, but in Scotland I was going to be earning £300 a week because there's no YTS. So Blackburn jumped me up to, you know, what I would have been earning in Scotland. So they sort of matched the payments, and my ma was very happy with Blackburn because Blackburn was like Emmerdale Farm. It was very, very hard to get in trouble. There was cows and sheep, and I was just living out in the sticks. And
in Lancashire, yeah.
Yeah, my ma was delighted, so she was like, you won't get in trouble there. I eventually proved that wrong, but yeah, so we signed for Blackburn in the hope that I wouldn't get in too much trouble over there.
Yeah, I suppose at that time Blackburn, Damien Duff was there.
Yeah, Duffer was a big part of it as well. It was strange because
this is after the O2 World Cup, then, is it?
Yeah, I think I went over in about 2005, 2006. It was in around then. The amount of alcohol passed through my system since.
I think he was at Chelsea at that point, but obviously when you originally went over, he would have been there.
Yeah, I think I went the 7th of July, in around the start of July, and I think at the start of the season, saying around August, he was gone. He was gone to Chelsea, and I think Graham Souness wasn't long going to Newcastle after that as well. Yeah. So the two reasons I signed was Graham Souness and Damien Duff, and within a month of me signing, they were gone out of the club. So it just opened my eyes to what football was really like, and thankfully when Mark Hughes came in, he liked me as well. So there was no real issue anyway. So.
They looked after kind of. Jeff Kennan was there for a number of years as well. He was an Irish international. And they had a couple of other Irish internationals over the years as well. Yeah,
Blackburn did have a couple of decent young Irish players, but there was always this thing that when Souness was in charge, that the only Irish player that ever played for Souness was Damien Duff at Blackburn. So there was sort of this thing that you won't get into the Blackburn team because you're Irish unless you're Damien Duff. But I think that was just a myth. I know we brought Barry Ferguson down, Lorenzo Amaru, so a couple more from Rangers, but they were good players. I don't think it was anything to do with an alliance with any sort of any Rangers or Celtic connection. It was just, these are good players, let's get them down to the Premier League. And yeah, that Blackburn team at the time was excellent. There was a big drinking culture in it, but there was some outstanding players as well.
But they had a good European run as well under Souness.
We did. Yeah, we got to, I can't remember where we got to, but I remember getting traced around Europe, and I never actually made the squad. I was in the squad but didn't make the bench, so
they're bringing you around though.
Yeah, you get brought around, and this is at like 16, 17, so it was more of a a pat on the shoulder saying we think you're decent, you'll be here one day, just give you a little taste of it. And yeah, it was excellent, just earning your stripes as to become a professional footballer, and seeing how lads carry on in the hotels, how they look after their bodies and what they eat when you're eating in hotels. And you start to realise, and even Damien Duff was a big thing for me, how much he loved to sleep, how much sleeping aids your recovery. And yeah, you get just into this mindset of just sleeping 24/7. When I'm not training or not playing games, I was sleeping, and that was largely down to trying to emulate Damien Duff.
I actually spoke with Matt Holland. I did a podcast with him, and he was roommates with Duffer for the 2002 World Cup, and he said literally that's all he did was sleep the whole time. All he did was sleep. So
yeah,
there you go.
Honestly, that's it. The hotels are so boring. You get up, you eat, you have your cup of coffee, and if you can sleep, your muscles are always aching. It becomes the norm as a footballer that your legs are aching. But if you can have an ice bath, get yourself a couple of hours here and there during the day, it really does help.
What was, I suppose, Blackburn like? Because as I said, there's some serious players there. I mean, there's Brad Friedel in goal. I'm not sure if you were there when Benny McCarthy and
Benny was there. Yeah,
Santa Cruz.
Benny, Santa Cruz, Bellamy. There was some outstanding
huge
players. Two
players,
guys.
like even Bellamy at the time I don't think he was hitting his potential. Did he come from Newcastle to Blackburn or somewhere in between? Before he went to Liverpool then.
He went to Liverpool, and I think he went to Man City after that as well. I'm not sure
he really
where
went
we gone from.
Upwards after Blackburn because he played under Hughes.
Again, though, looking like, I think Hughes got him because of the Welsh connection they were together.
But he got the best out of him.
I did, but he was a strange character, Craig Bellamy. He really was. But you get him a little bit older in the tooth now, and you think about things that not just footballing. But if I had a chance to sign Craig Bellamy and have him in my dressing room and knowing how he would interact with other players who are maybe not pulling their weight, I'd definitely have him in there. He can be a bit ruthless, a little bit cutthroat, but he'd get the best out of the players in the dressing room. And watching people like him train, and I remember him in the gym as well. It's not just on the pitch you see him train, and it's in the gym you see the way he walks on his body. And he was always so quick, Craig, but he put work in to be quick. It wasn't just God given. He worked at it, and like I say, a bit of a fiery character, but a great footballing person.
Sounds a bit like Roy Keane, but anyway.
Well, he used to, when he first came to Blackburn, he used to live in Wales still. So he would get a helicopter from Wales and land on one of the pitches and then come to training, which was, I don't think Roy would do that sort of stuff.
Okay, no, he definitely wouldn't.
Yeah, he was one of them sort of characters, but like you said, like playing for Liverpool, Manchester City, a Welsh legend, if he can't get a helicopter, then who can?
Yeah, and obviously he was the start of that kind of Man City revolution then as well, the early days of that. But like some of the players, like I'm still, like that was a really good Morton Gams Pedersen. I know you were competing with a spot for him in the team at the time as well. Like there's a really good, strong team there. Like finishing top 7, top 8 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, we made some really good signings. Like you say, Martin was there. We had Mickey Gray left back, and then Stephen Warner come in. We signed Ryan Nelson, who not a lot of people knew of.
Yeah, he went on to be a really good signing.
Yeah, I remember actually the first time he came, he was on trial, and I just happened to be training with the first team. And after training, they said, Keith, can you do a bit of 1v1 stuff with Ryan? I was like, yeah, okay, no problem. So it was literally the width of the 18-yard box, a goalkeeper, and me against him 1v1. And you know, it was so intense, and I was thinking, geez, he's good. Like, you know, I didn't know where he was coming from, and he went on to be the captain of the, you know, Blackburn. Obviously went to play for Spurs as well. So he was a really, really tough, strong, good player, and brilliant in 1v1 situations. But yeah, looking back now, I would have been probably 17 going 1v1s with the future captain of the club. But at the time, you don't realise you're just playing football. But yeah, it was some crazy experiences.
And two guy then, like, because I watch a lot of those kind of 1 to 11s, and people talk about, you know, best player they've ever faced, and loads of people, like, surprisingly would say, actually Mark Noble recently said he was the toughest player to play against, because when he was breaking through at West Ham, he obviously played Blackburn, and he said he made a holy show of him, made a fool of him. Yeah. So, and Mark Noble has gone on to have a really good career, like, he's just finished up, but for him to even say it, like, I know the midfielders he would have faced even in recent times, the likes of De Bruyne and these likes, you know. So for him to say that about two guys, and he's not the only person to say it, so he must have been unbelievable, lethal.
He was finishing ability, like we've all seen he strikes from the edge of the box from crosses in. He was unbelievable. He probably couldn't run as much when I was there. He was getting a little bit older, but just, you know, he was probably one of the last real characters in football. He used to smoke at half time. He used to get Coca-Cola delivered into the canteen. That was just for him. It was hilarious, and yeah, like you could see that Mark Hughes, even Graham Souness, to a certain point, were hovering around him, and as soon as he didn't perform, they were going to nail him with the Coca-Cola, or nail him because he didn't do as much running. But he always produced. He really did, and like I said, a real character. But probably in hindsight, me looking at two guy doing the things he was doing probably rubbed off on me in a way they shouldn't have. But you know, that's all my fault. You know, that was nothing to do with two guy. It was me misinterpreting things. But yeah, a real legend and a real character of football. Somebody I have a lot of time for. If I was to bump into him now, I'd give him a big hug. He was just a nice bloke, and like I say, a world class footballer with very little ego, which is not something you get a lot.
And nearly messed up your move to Preston.
He what?
And he nearly messed up your move to Preston.
Nearly messed up my move to Preston. Yeah, I was. I was doing my medical for Preston, and I needed to go and get a scan in Manchester on my back, and literally as we're on the motorway doing 70 miles an hour, two guy drives past, and he said, "Oh, Keith, what are you doing?" I'm doing my medical now. He said, "Oh, who for?" It's Preston. And he told me that they were shite and I shouldn't sign for them, and left me in the car with the physio for the next 45-minute drive. So it was a little bit awkward, but yeah, we got there in the end.
Yeah, you seemed like a bit of crack, to be fair. So talk to me then, because you've said Souness and Hughes. Were you ever making a breakthrough there? I know there was a loan spell in between there, or it might have been 2 loan spells in between, because I think you were there 2006 to 2010, was it?
Yeah, the dates are in around there. Yeah, we'll go with Wikipedia, because like you said, my memories since all the alcohol is not bang on. But yeah, them dates would have been in around right. I made my first team debut. It was a pre-season game against Grimsby for Mark Hughes, and I think I was 15 when I played. And yeah, it was a strange thing. I actually didn't break into the Premier League team until Paul Ince got the job. Paul Ince gave me my Premier League debut against Everton. And
I remember that game. That's Arteta scored a free kick from an angle to the edge of the box almost. I think it was an equaliser. Yeah,
well, no, I think we were losing 1-0. Because I come off the bench and he turned around and said, "Keith, you're coming on." And I looked behind me for Keith Andrews. And he was like, "No, you." I was like, "Oh, right." And I come on. I was up against Phil Neville, and I won a free kick, and we put the free kick in and we scored.
Oh, then it must have been 1-0, and then you got the equaliser. Yeah, was it 1-1 draw?
I think it was 2-1. Then Andre Uyer, I'm not sure how to say, he's a Dutch.
Oh, the fullback, wasn't he?
Yeah, the fullback. He scored in the last minute as well. I think we won it 2-1, and I sort of got props for getting an assist or something. Yeah, but yeah, it was brilliant. Like that's my Premier League debut at Goodison. Like not a lot,
and to win it
as well in tough grounds. Obviously the Paul Ince didn't do too well at Blackburn. He ended up getting sacked in around Christmas time, but for me, on a personal note, he trusted me enough because, you know, I travelled everywhere under Mark Hughes, never really got too much of a sniff with him, but he used to always say defensively Martin Gams-Pedersen was an awful lot better than me and would put in a bigger shift, so I was always playing second fiddle to him, and yeah, Martin was always good for a goal as well, so it was really difficult to try and get past him.
Yeah, but like, I think you're probably underselling yourself a little bit there, because if you speak to anyone who watched football around that time, or you know was growing up around that time, he's known as a legend. It might be because he scored a goal. I think he used to always score against United, didn't he? But I think everyone always says like the streets won't forget Martin Gams-Pedersen. He's just one of them players that kind of catches your eye, and he's one of those obscure footballers in a way. And I'm not saying he's bad, like he's obscure in a way because he used to score crackers, and he was a decent player, but people remember him. So I think maybe having him ahead of you was obviously always going to be tough in from your point of view, like, you know.
Well, yeah, he was on one wing, so even if I thought I'll go over to the other wing and try and get in on the right wing, David Bentley was over there as well, so he was scoring hat-tricks against United and everything at the time. I think he got into the English squad. People were calling him the next Beckham, so he was pretty much locked down on the right side, and Brett Emerton was the backup for him. So yeah,
he was a very good player from Australia.
Yeah, there were some super players in that team, and you know, even now when I start reeling off the names, I'm thinking, Jesus, I was in amongst all this, and you think I must have been decent at that age, but yeah, you know, when you're playing, you're just thinking this fella's ahead of me, and you're in against him. You're not thinking about he's a legend and you know blah de blah. But you know, it was really good times, and it set me up for what I was going to do in my career.
Yeah, you had Juve there as well. I know you're not a big fan of him. I spoke about that under the cosh. We won't go into him. I don't want to give him any airtime really.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of fans out there for Juve, but Juve's a big enough fan of himself anyway.
Yeah, spitting on Celtic fans and stuff. So we won't really go into that. But I suppose talk to me when so from Ince, like when he gets sacked, is that when you're getting pulled away from the team? When did you start going out? Or
well, no, I was going out the whole time.
His mic is wrecking my head; it keeps falling down. But go on.
It's like no, when I first got into the team, I was drinking from probably about 17, because I was living in a digs. No, sorry, I bought my first apartment when I was 17. I bought a Range Rover. I moved out of the digs, which was only 2 minutes away from the training ground, but it was freedom, and I had a car, and Facebook was becoming a thing, and social media. So yeah, there was access to women from all over the place, and yeah, it just the drink really did start to come into it. But my career was going up and up, and I think that was when you're younger, you can hide it, you can get away with it, you can still be have a big physical output when you're out the night before. And yeah, I just sort of got into this trap of drinking, training, playing, and yeah, I never really like I said, there was a bit of a drinking school at Blackburn towards the tail end when I came in, and I think I sort of probably carried that on in my own little way. And yeah, no, I wouldn't say rebel, but just dealing with things in my head in a different way, and it just slipped into the norm, and yeah, wasn't great.
Yeah, because like you mentioned, there was stuff probably in your early days that probably affected that, and you didn't go into it, but you don't have to either here. But that was that seemed to be kind of maybe demons or whatever that were maybe affecting you, because you can see that with some players now. You kind of feel like if they had got their head together, they'd have had a decent career. Because like at the clubs that you played with, and we'll come to them, like they're pretty big clubs. Like that, if anyone was walking away from football at the age you did, and they look back and went, I should play for some pretty decent clubs there and play with some pretty decent players. Obviously, you're an Irish international as well, and we'll talk about that too. But like, you're kind of looking at that and you almost feel sorry in a way, and I don't mean that in a condescending way, but you almost kind of, you wish that there was someone there for you more so that could maybe be that sort of support network. Because I know you said as well was that like you were away from 13, your family weren't there, they were at home. I suppose mobile phones and everything like that were only becoming really a thing. They weren't as big now. You can WhatsApp home or whatever. I think the modern player has it a bit better in that sense. Yeah,
I think you're spot on. Like I said, when I first went to Blackburn, I lived in a digs with 16 other players, and I would say the first 6 months I went in July. For at least the rest of that year, I cried every night to sleep. I remember I had an Usher album on my Walkman, and I used to just put that into my ears, face the wall and cry, and then wake up the next morning and go and train. And it was the same thing for about 6 months. I'd go and I'd cry, or if my roommate Frankie Fielding, he was there, I'd go into the bathroom and I'd cry in there. And like I said, I'd ring my mother, I'd speak to my ma. I wouldn't tell them how I was feeling, because I knew if I started telling people how I felt inside and that I was sad and a little bit down, I could easily end up back in Dublin. I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to be a footballer. So although I was sad, I still knew there was things I had to do. And yeah, like I can look back on my career and feel a bit down about it. But, you know, I think for me mental health, I think it's better to say, you know, with all the stuff that was going on in the backgrounds, I still managed to achieve this, rather than saying I only done that and I should have done more. Because I thought that for years and years, that I should have done more and I should have played more, I should have secured people's futures. But, you know, at the end of the day, I don't think that's really up to me to secure people's futures. If I could have, that would have been brilliant, but I don't think that's something I should put on my own shoulders. And, you know, you live and learn, and I think I look at it now as something I survived rather than something I got through, and it was really difficult. But I think there's a real need for somebody like me. Just, you know, I don't want that off of any players. If I can help them, you know, get to grips with life in England, or just help them as a human being, or pick them out of a little bit of depression that they might be heading towards, then I feel like I've done my job. Like I said, I'm not here for any financial help or, you know, any social media tap on the back. I just want to try and help people because I've been in that situation.
Yeah, it's kind of in some ways like Gascoigne in a way. Like, his career was so good, but at the end of the day, people look back on how he kind of finished, and, you know, how he kind of went downward, whereas you obviously didn't. You said, look, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to change this, and we'll come to that. But I suppose from the point where Souness leaves and Hughes leaves, Allardyce comes in, is that right? Where are you at this point in your football career? Like, you 12 appearances I have on Wikipedia for you at Blackburn. So when Ince left, were you getting into the team? When did Allardyce come in?
Allardyce came in around just after Christmas, maybe the January, because I remember we got beat by Wigan around Christmas time. I think it was 5-2. We got properly hammered, and we had a Christmas do in Dublin after, and we were all sitting in the dressing room thinking, like, is Paul Ince going to pull the plug on this or what? And he was sitting there for 10 minutes and didn't say a word, and then eventually he looked up and said, I've ran yous, I've give out to yous, I've punished yous might as well go on the piss. So we all packed up and went to Dublin, and by the time we had landed in Dublin, turned the phones back on, Paul Ince had been sacked. So we flew back, and Allardyce got the job.
Was Ince with you when you got sacked?
No, it was only players. The staff didn't come, it was just the players. But yeah, it was crazy time. So he got the job around January. I remember he put me in. The first game he played me, I remember training on the Friday, and we were playing Liverpool on the Saturday, and he pulled me and said, Keith, you're going to start on the right wing. And I was like, Jesus, like, we're playing Liverpool in Anfield away, like. And it was the Hillsborough disaster, the anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster, so you knew the atmosphere was going to be huge. Yeah. He played Chris Samba up front. Remember the big 6'4" centre half?
Forgot, yeah.
He played him up front.
Him and Nelson,
played him on me on the right wing, with the view that every time I get it, I'll come back on my left foot and cross it to the back post, and Samba will be there to win the ball. We tipped off, and within 10 seconds, about 20 seconds, we were 1-0 down. Torres scored straight away. So,
he was unbelievable.
The plan went straight out the window. But on a personal level, I think we lost the game 4-0, maybe 4-1. But on a personal level, I think I was 18, 19 playing in the Premier League. I thought I did okay. But on the right wing, not really. I was a left-footed player. I just remember Allardyce bringing me in and saying, listen, I gave you a chance, you didn't take it. And I was like, it's the Hillsborough disaster. I was playing against a Spanish international.
Jose Enrique, was it?
Yeah, I'm not sure who
it
was.
It's probably Jose Enrique.
It might have been Enrique, yeah. But I just remember saying, like, but he's an international. It's the Hillsborough disaster. Xavi Alonso was playing in the middle. Mascherano was there. I was like,
did a serious
and you're saying, this is my chance? And we got beat 4-0, and I was playing right wing, and he just, well, you didn't impress me, blah, blah, blah. And me and Allardyce after that, we were nice. Like, we got on off the pitch. He used to call me a pikey. His nickname for me was a pikey, and I used to call him Plasma Head. So we used to just have a bit of banter with each other. But he was actually
Plasma Head,
a real nice bloke. But tactically, we didn't really get on. You know, he was all about stats and kicking the ball into certain areas. You know, he just didn't
Percentage
football would be how it sum it up. Yeah, got results though. But I think he got over £1 million bonus for keeping Blackburn in the league that year. That was the whole incentive of him coming in, and
so he's made a career off that. Then towards the end, he did it with Everton and Sunderland and a couple of other clubs.
And like I say, it is percentage football. It's probably not great to look at. It's not great to exactly play in, but it gets the job done.
Well, the Everton fans wanted him out after they got to a certain point where it was just miserable.
Once they get safe, then we're like, if we want. But if you're down there, if you're down there, whatever club you're in, and Allardyce comes in the door, you're thinking we have a chance of staying up there.
He's a good record. I think he only went down with one team. It was at West Brom. The other year. But anyway, so you were kind of having, I suppose, back and forth with him. Was he wasn't really giving you a chance? So, at this stage, you must have been going like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, well, I remember the one big turning point was that after we stayed up that year, we went to Austria in pre-season, and we had he was a golf fella, but he was like a psychotherapist, so we wanted to get into the players' heads, and nobody would talk to him because he was employed by Blackburn, so whatever you say to him is going to go back to the manager, so nobody would speak to him. Obviously then the manager got the hump, somebody has to speak to him. Well, who's the youngest? I'm the youngest, so Keith, you go and speak to the boy. So I spoke to him, I relayed everything. So he was asking questions like, why aren't you in the team, blah blah blah. So I answered him. I said, well, Martin is a long throw and he's a bit better defensively, and it all got relayed back to Allardyce. And by the time we had left Austria and got back to Manchester, I went in the next morning and I was told, you're going along to Sheffield United. And there was no ifs or buts or if you want, it was you're going to Sheffield United. And that was it. I remember when he said to me, you're going to go to Sheffield United, I told him I don't want to. And he said, no, that's not what I asked you. You're going to Sheffield United, because him and Kevin Blackwell were really close friends. So it wasn't a bad move. I played a bit of football at Sheffield United, so I was happy. But I didn't get much of a choice in it.
Yeah, how was that? Because you're going somewhere. Again, you probably don't. I don't know. I think Sheffield United, again, they're quite good for having Irish players, but you probably don't know anyone there. You're going to a totally new area overnight.
Yeah, well,
and that's again something that people don't take in consideration from the outside world of football.
Yeah, well, like I said, I when I was younger, I was a bit more withdrawn. But even with me saying to you that I didn't want to go, when I went to Sheffield United, Blackburn sent a PA with me just to make sure I got my house sorted and places to stay. So we started looking for an apartment. I started being really awkward because, like I said, I didn't want this move to happen. I thought I was number 2 behind Martin in the Blackburn team. So I started saying, oh, no, I don't like that apartment. I don't like this apartment. Long story short, we found this house that had like 2 double garages, a swimming pool out the back, a pond with kite carp in it. It had its own private gates, a roundabout leading up to the driveway. Ridiculous house, like $2,500 a month to rent. And I said, I want to stay there. And thinking that he'd say, oh, listen, you're too much high maintenance, go back to Blackburn type of thing. But no, I got it. And Sheffield United said, oh, well, we give you a rent allowance of $2,000 a month. So I had to pay $500 a month to stay in at $2,500. But it was crazy, like parties in that house every night after every game. It was mental, crazy stuff. And this is all the stuff I was being a diva off it, thinking, oh, well, I'll go back to Blackburn, this won't go through. But I got everything that I wanted. And yeah, no club looking at me, nobody living with me, my apartment at Blackburn was only around the corner, so they would still have interaction with me. But when I stayed in the house in Sheffield, it was just no hold barred, do what you like type of thing. So
would the house not be in bits? Because I always say, like, when you're a lad like that, you always need a woman's touch, like the.
Well, there was cleaners, because the fella who owned it lived in the south of France, but he had cleaners and stuff, so there was no key on the door. It was like a padlock, like a numbered padlock, so people would just come up, do the padlock, come in, clean the house and walk back out. I'd be walking around my house, the house I was renting, and there'd be people hoovering it that I'd never met before, and I'd just walk past them.
Wouldn't be afraid of them stroking it, no?
It wasn't my house.
Any of your stuff?
Well, no, I didn't really have a lot. Like all my boots and stuff were in there. I'd generally drive up on a Monday with the clothes on my back, a phone charger, and stay for a few days and then go back to Blackburn.
When did you get your licence?
I got my licence when I came back to Ireland.
Okay. So
it was totally illegal driving over there. It was some of the stuff.
We've all been there. So,
but like I said, I bought that Range Rover when I was 17 with the apartment, and I was just away with the fairies from a young age. You know, so many times in football, in life, sorry, I was sort of taught that, you know, if you're good enough at football, you get away with anything, and you know, I think that sort of filtered into driving and, you know, whatever else. And it's not big and it's not clever, and thankfully nothing happened, and you know, I have my licence now, so yeah, not big and not clever. I wouldn't advise it, but thankfully got away with it.
The football, Sheffield United, gone back to Blackburn, and then you get released or sacked from Blackburn.
Yeah, well, that,
so what was the story there?
That ended on a bit of a sour note, because I played well for Sheffield United. I scored my first professional goal against Leicester, and I done okay. Me and Gary Speed were getting on really well, and I was enjoying my time there. And I missed.
What was he like, Speed?
Speed, an absolute, like, a legend.
Everyone says
absolute legend. I remember when I got there was Stephen Quinn, there was a couple of Irish lads that made me feel really welcome, but Gary Speed was like a coach player type of role, and unbelievable.
He's coming to the end of his days there.
Yeah,
so
but
he finished at Bolton and went there after.
He is, like, when you think of a Premier League legend, Gary Speed is probably the 4th centre midfielder that pops into your head. And so yeah, such a nice bloke, made me feel really welcome. And you know, when you think, like, he was doing things that he didn't have to do for me. He would grab me, come on, I let you meet the tea ladies, this is where you get your kit. Like, Gary Speed doesn't need to be showing me this stuff, this would be somebody else, but he took the time to invest in me, made me feel welcome, and yeah, an absolute legend.
That's huge. I think Seamus Coleman's quite like that with the Irish setup and the Everton setup. A lot of people speak from in the similar high regard, like, but everyone speaks so well about Gary Speed. But yeah, so you were saying though. So
yes, no, well. Sorry, I was coming towards the end of me deal. I missed a game on the Saturday because of through injury, and then we were playing Plymouth on the Tuesday away. And the manager pulled me and said, I was a lower back injury. The manager, Kevin Blackwell, pulled me and said, Keith, we're not going to bother with you. It's like a 6-hour drive down to Plymouth. We have a game on Saturday, so we're going to leave you for Tuesday and you'll play on Saturday. So, and bear in mind, I played the last 17 games in a row, so I was like, yeah, okay, no problem. Then 2 minutes later, Sam Ellis, the assistant manager, said, right, everybody who's not travelling on this line, we're going to do some doggies. I was like, well, he's not talking about me, because I'm not travelling because my back's a bit iffy, so surely I'm not going to do doggies. I said, no, you are doing doggies, son. And I basically said, I'm not doing doggies. And it bit of a to and fro before me and him, and he basically said, listen, get your boots and fuck off home, like back to Blackburn type of thing. And even now, when I think about it, I think it was a bit of a throwaway comment from him, but I got me boots and fucked off, and turned up to Blackburn the next day, and Allardyce didn't know anything about it. I had to tell him about it, and yeah, that was it. So I came back to Blackburn, not in great circumstances, and then crashed my car. Probably a week later, crashed my car, and I'd not, like I said, no licence, and Allardyce just said, nah, not having this with this fella anymore, and wouldn't even speak to me. They wouldn't even like tell me that I'd been sacked. He sent the doctor in to tell me I'd been sacked, and yeah, just jumped on a plane home to Dublin and got on the piss for a couple of weeks, sorry.
And what was your thought process then? Because I know you were keeping it a secret from the family that you had been sacked. Like, it wasn't like made public, was it?
No, well, Allardyce had said that he's going to sack me, didn't want to speak to me, so I went home. My agent I obviously tic-tacking with my agent throughout all this, and he said, listen, we're going to go through your contract. If he can sack you, he will. So he went through it, and he said, listen, he can't sack you. There's nothing in the contract you haven't done, like, although driving without a licence and all that wasn't a sackable offence. So he said to me, listen, I spoke to Allardyce, he said the club will continue to pay you, but they don't want you around the training ground.
Yeah.
So I just stayed in Dublin till the last day of the January transfer window, getting drunk, and then Preston rang, said Darren Ferguson rang, said he'd love to get me on board and blah blah. And I eventually went there. Alex Ferguson's son, yeah. So yeah, all the family, all my friends here just thought I had a hamstring injury and I was home for a couple of weeks and that was it. But yeah, fell around Dublin for a couple of weeks and ended up going back to Preston. And
what? Because you're back then in Lancashire, was that good for you then? Because you knew the setup of the area. Yeah,
well, look, I was at having while I was at Preston. I had a little girl and I had a girlfriend as well at the time, so I never really wanted to stray too far out of Lancashire. I always wanted to be in and around Lancashire. There was a couple of moves that popped up to London, but yeah, I found myself I was finding enough trouble in rural areas like Blackburn and stuff like that. So if I was to go into a city, like
imagine in London,
that's even Manchester, I was thinking, I could get in a lot of trouble here. I could go under early. So I tried to avoid it as much as I could. But yeah, I got known as a Lancashire hero then, because I was going to Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday, Preston, Blackburn, Burnley. So yeah, just bounced around Lancashire.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was looking through, because they're all rivals of each other.
That's why every set of team hates me, because I played for a rival.
Oh, okay. Well, luckily you're not on social media, so you probably don't have to deal with
half
half
the reason, believe me.
Yeah, luckily you don't have to deal with them. What was it like then? Because I seen the lads on Under the Cosh were talking about the gaffer loved you there, and it was yourself and
Paul Coots, yeah, the centre midfielder. He brought Cootsy with him from Peterborough. And
he was his golden boy, so yeah.
He was his golden boy, he was his whipping boy, but he loved him, and he used to abuse Cootsy, but Cootsy took it because he knew the gaffer loved him. And yeah, there were so many times that, I wouldn't do enough running and training, and he'd get the statistics back off, the packs, and he said, Keith, you need to go back out, you didn't do enough running. Cootsy, get your boots, you're with him. And Cootsy would just take it, and me and Cootsy, he put me and Cootsy as roommates for away trips, and me and Cootsy ended up becoming really close. Cootsy ended up living with me for a couple of months, but yeah, Cootsy liked to drink as well, so we probably weren't the best company for each other, but yeah, we were okay.
How are you handling the drinking at this point? Because this is your third club. Then were you feeling like your big chance had gone because of the Blackburn stuff? Did you feel like you were, because I think your dream was to play in the Premier League, you'd done that, but in terms of being like a regular in the Premier League, probably was more so your...
I didn't feel like the chance had gone. I always felt like the chance would come back. I felt like I had played in the Premier League, although it was only 12 times or whatever it wasn't an awful lot, but I felt like I'd done it. I felt like I could do it. And
you felt at that level then?
Yeah, I felt like I could do it. I didn't feel out of depth, which, like, when you play against Arsenal, United, you're thinking chasing shadows. I felt okay. I felt, for my age, I was thinking a couple of years' time, I'd be the same, if not better, as these lads, but I think that mindset was the wrong mindset to have. I should have been looking at them, trying to learn, rather than thinking, I'm already here, so a couple of drinks won't harm anybody. But it really did start to overtake me, and it took a while. Was it
Preston when it started overtaking you, the drink?
Probably even before that. It started showing at Preston, because I couldn't get up and down the pitch as much. I was a little bit heavy around the belly, and people could see it. But it was only ever a problem when I didn't score or I didn't play well. When I played well, nobody cared what I looked like, or he smelled the drink on the way in here. Nobody cared, because I played well. But at Preston, like, I ended up, I done really well at Preston, but the drink was out of control. Like, it was literally, I was drinking more often than not, probably 5-6 times a week. Like, I'm properly drinking, like, in pubs, and 13, 14 pints, and then going on to small ones. So it wasn't good. I was abusing my body, burning the candle at both ends, and yeah, like, it caught up with me eventually, but it took a while. Without wanting to come across as big-headed, I think my talent probably masked an awful lot of it, and I got away with an awful lot of stuff, but it didn't help me in the long run.
Is that why he probably wasn't as harsh on you? Because he felt that maybe if he gave you a bit of love, that it might change your ways, Ferguson? Yeah,
possibly. Fergie was brilliant with me. He really was. The first time I signed, and within the first week I was locked up. I missed training. My girlfriend at the time had said I hit her, which I didn't. I would never hit a woman, but yeah, I got locked up. The police came to question me, and because I had been drinking, they threw me in a cell and said, we'll question you tomorrow when you're sober. So I had to spend the night in a cell and miss training, and yeah, it wasn't great having to go in and tell Darren Ferguson that I'd missed training because I'd been locked up, and they took the phone off me. And yeah, he was brilliant. He sorted out a lot of things once he got to the truth of the matter. He would defend me, but he always wanted to know the truth first. And there was women turning up to the training ground, throwing me clothes all over the place, and yeah, I just wasn't living the right life. I was living the life of a footballer, going out, doing what he likes, drinking, and I was more of a party boy with a footballer on the side. And yeah, like I said, I think it was just the back end of the drinking culture in Blackburn just stuck with me, and yeah, trying to struggle with depression, that, like, from not being home in around Christmas, stuff like that, and girlfriends being in Dublin. It was just a bit all over the place. And I had my first daughter as well. Ruby was born when I was 19 in Preston, so yeah, there was some, a lot of demons in my head at the time. Drinking just numbed it.
I remember when I've obviously worked with you in TV and stuff like that, but you said to me, like, we were watching an Ireland game, and I remember you were talking about kind of when you're coming through, people don't tell you the dangers of, like, women will literally try to get you, or try to get them pregnant, and then you're kind of left in to pay the way. Not that you don't do that with your daughter or anything like that, I don't mean it in that sense, but what I mean is they'll try to get pregnant from a footballer, because then they'll have a...
Yeah, it is. It's not... These are just, like I say, with pitfalls, when you think of somebody who you'd like to tell your Sundays, I have a 4-year-old now, and people always ask me, would you like Teddy to be a professional footballer? And the football is not the problem. The 90 minutes on the pitch is not the problem. It's the stuff that goes off with women and the social media and stuff like that. I would be really sceptical of opening my son up to that sort of stuff. But like you said, I feel I'd be able to shelter him from an awful lot of it, but it's not nice. And I remember walking into nightclubs and women look at you and you think, like, I must look well today, but they know who you are. That's what it is. You as a footballer, you like to think, I know I'm a good looking lad. It's nothing to do with being good looking or having an Irish accent. It's because they know you kick a ball for a living and you're earning thousands. And there is an awful lot of pitfalls, and certain nightclubs you go to, there's going to be certain women there, and so you get certain attention. And when I was younger, I liked all that stuff, but when I really got down to the drinking, I would do it in bars offside where people wouldn't know me and stuff. But yeah, there was a big drinking scene with footballers and page 3 girls and stuff like that, and yeah, it can be quite a dark place.
Yeah, and obviously that kind of was probably in the background. Not a lot of people were knowing that you're obviously playing football, but you have all this going on in the background. It probably wasn't known at all, really, was it?
No, like you said, I don't think...
keeping it from teammates, or...
There was probably 1 or 2 that knew about it.
They're probably with you on the nights out.
With me on the nights out, yeah. There was, like, even I remember, like, people would always ask me, on Friday nights I'd go out, and a lot of the players wouldn't go out with me. So I would get the boy called Boris, who used to clean the dressing rooms. I'd ring him, and me and him go out on a Friday night together. And yeah, it was just anybody or anything.
Saturday.
Yeah, it became like, no, I wasn't out every single Friday before the game, but probably the 50% of the majority I would have been out most of the time. And look, it's not big and it's not clever. I shouldn't have done it, but I was dealing with so many things. You have to understand that I couldn't sit in a room by myself with my thoughts, because my head would go to places, and the next thing I'd be depressed. And the only thing I had to switch my mind into a positive mindset, or just to think about things differently, was alcohol and
our company as well.
Well, yeah, company with women, but I would have to get drunk to be able to speak to a woman. So it was like a double-edged sword, like meeting fire with fire. So I was always burning the candle at both ends, chasing myself. And yeah, it's just nothing I did was ever conducive to a good footballing career. It was quite the opposite, really. Yeah,
kind of a little bit self-destructive at the time. That's like, when you think, and how old are you at this time? 19?
19, yeah, when Ruby was born,
yeah. That's just... To think of someone so young over there and you're away from everybody. I mean, it's hard enough when you're, say, in Dublin at 19 and you're out there in the big bad world. But then you're living in a different country. I know it's not far away, but you're there. And as I said, it's not, everything wasn't as accessible probably as it was. Like, there was Facebook back then, which is fair enough, but still, it was kind of that was the turning point of social media, where you could do that. But then again, there's probably the negative side of social media, where birds were probably adding you here and there and trying to chat with you, and you're probably like, yeah, come down or whatever, that type of way. I'm not saying you were, but you'd like to think that that's kind of the pattern. And then when you're out, you're obviously meeting women in that sense as well, and you're getting absolutely plastic drunk. And I think you've said before, you were just waking up in different beds, and maybe probably your beds they were waking up in, and with people you probably didn't even know their names.
I know it got to the point where I had a driver who, his name was Mark. He's still a good friend of mine now, Mark Wilson, and it got to the point where he used to drive me around because I'd be drunk so much, and wherever woman's house I was going to, he would drop me off, and he'd be like, I'll be back for you in the morning to bring you to training. And he just became like a shadow of mine, because I was going around drunk 24/7 and I couldn't drive, and I was getting dropped off in women's houses left, right and centre and brought to training. But yeah, like it's not big, it wasn't great. And Yeah, like now I have girls. I know I had Ruby at the time, but I feel I've grown up and become a man, and you develop a respect for women that I definitely didn't have at the time. And like I said, I've done some really poor things to women over the years, and you can only apologise and move on. And like now, like I say now with my little girls, with Jenny Ann, Izzy, and Ruby, it's it would really infuriate me to think somebody treating them like that. So you just grow up and cop on as a human being, really, and it helps not being drunk all the time as well, I have to say.
Yeah. Your daughter Ruby, do you still keep in contact with her and stuff? Yeah.
It's quite difficult. Like I say, the last time I seen Ruby was probably 3 or 4 years ago, and there's no social media, there's no contact really, but it is what it is.
Maybe one day she'll get in contact with you.
That's it, yeah. What's she now? 13 now, so another 5 years she'll be 18, so hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, well look, let's go back to the football. Preston avoiding relegation then at that point. You're carrying a double hernia and you're going around with drugs out of your arse, or put into your arse even for your double hernia, so you can play. And are you still drinking? You're still drinking while you're getting these injections to play and stuff. Your body and mind must have been all over the place.
Yeah, it was, but for me, everything that I did in football, there was always I was always thinking, like, how can I wiggle a drink out of this now? And with the suppositories and the painkilling injections, I wouldn't, like, with the championship, it'd be Tuesday, Saturday, game. So I'd play on a Saturday, be off on the Sunday, so I'd go out Saturday night. Monday I wouldn't train because I had my double hernia. Tuesday I just turn up for the game, get injected and go and play. So I'll be out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday probably just die in the jacuzzi or the sauna, and then play again on the Saturday. So I ended up at the age of 19, 20 not training and just playing games with painkillers and suppositories. And like I remember the physio and all saying, like, your arse is like a dartboard, Keith. We can't keep doing this for you, but it kept happening because they wanted me on the pitch. It wasn't maybe this isn't the best thing for him as a human being. It was what's best for the club.
But you're delivering on the pitch.
Exactly, but I remember having a conversation with the physio at the time, and I had one of the nerve endings in my groin was giving me a bit of pain, and because it kept happening, they wanted me to go to Germany and burn my nerve ending. And he said, like, it doesn't solve the problem, but you won't get any pain. I was like, well, that doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
So although he said you could actually walk with a limp because your body will protect itself and feel the pain, but I won't actually physically feel it because the nerve ending will be burnt.
Okay,
I was like,
I get you.
That's just destroying my body at 19, 20 to be asking me to do stuff like that. But this is
maybe
when you need
35 or something.
Exactly, yeah. But at 19, 20, that's not the answer. Your body, if your body's giving you that pain, it's for a reason. It needs to be addressed, not just burnt and get you back out on the pitch. So
there must have been a fairly poor physio team to not let you recover.
It comes
I know
from
it was
the manager,
if you keep us up, then you can get it, and he didn't allow you to get it. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I needed the operation. Obviously, I was diagnosed with a double hernia, and he said, we'll get the painkillers until we're mathematically clear. I remember Sean St. Ledger gave the ball away against Scunthorpe, and it was 1-1 with a minute to go, and I scored in the last minute, and we won 2-1, and that was, I remember saying to the gaffer then, like, that's me, I can go and get the op. And no, every place now, whatever it is, 100 grand every place or whatever it was at the time meant a lot to them. So he's like, no, you're going to be playing next week and the week before after that, and it just rolled on. I eventually got the surgery, but I think doing that to your body when you know you shouldn't be doing it, although I wasn't feeling pain, it was only masking the pain. It wasn't sorting it out. So even that night, I remember I scored the goal, and me and Ledge went out, and I actually shat myself on a night out. Just not because I was too drunk. I was obviously drunk, but I couldn't. I was still numb from the waist down, so I thought I was letting a little fart and shat myself in the middle of a club. And though me and Ledge had a bit of a laugh about it, it was funny. It was, quite alarming now when you look back at it.
Yeah. Well, obviously because your body's almost like it's like it's shutting down in some ways, But from that point, did you leave Preston, or what? How did that work? And you go on to Burnley then?
We got relegated. We ended up getting relegated, and I spoke to
Was
Phil
that the
Brown.
next year?
The following year, yeah. I kept him up with the goal I scored against Scunthorpe. We stayed up that year. So the following year, I got my operations ready to go, and I spoke to Phil Brown. He said, he asked me what I wanted to do. I said, I'm happy to stay. Trapattoni was putting a bit of pressure on me, saying I can't be playing in League One if I want to play for Ireland. He actually described Preston as a pub team. He said, you can't play for that pub team if you want to play for us. So I said, oh, okay. And I was happy. I was sort of happy doing me drinking and playing, and I was a big fish in a small pond at Preston, so I was fairly happy. But then Burnley came knocking. They offered £1 million, and for the League One player, £1 million was quite a lot of money at the time, and it would have helped me to play for Ireland again. So although I didn't really want to leave,
and the direct rivals aren't that close.
Yeah, well, even Trevor Hemmings, he came to me and said, "Listen, it's too big of a swing to turn down $1 million because they were building houses at the back." And I said, "Listen, if you can give me a house, I'll stay," and blah blah. So it was like a $2 million swing to keep me rather than sell me. So yeah, they ended up selling me, and looking back, that was probably a pivotal moment in my career. If I could take it again, I would, and I would have just stayed at Preston, because the people in Burnley, the club, I loved it. I really enjoyed my time. Ross Wallace made probably a friend for life with him, but yeah, the move for me probably wasn't great.
Was that because Eddie Howe was a bit strange with you?
Yeah,
well, what way was that?
I remember when my agent said Burnley had put a £1 million bid in for you, I had to go and meet Eddie Howe, and I met him in Manchester, and he started to ask me about me drinking, how much do I drink, there's rumours about you, and blah blah. So I told him what he needed to know, didn't tell him any more than he needed to know. And yeah, the alarm bell should have been ringing there that, this guy, because this was at a time when some managers were sports scientists mad, and some managers were like, oh no, have a point, it's okay. So
he was the new kind of age.
He was the new age, yeah. He was sports science mad, your body's a temple, whereas Phil Brown was like, I don't care what you turn up like as long as you play well. So it was very, very different end of the scale. But even, I remember I played in the Carling Cup of Nations for Ireland, had the meeting with him, went and played for Ireland, turned up for the pre-season a week or so late, like supposed to be late because I was playing for Ireland. And done the bleep test the first day, and he didn't even introduce himself to me. I'd met him obviously outside it, but he didn't shake my hand and say, "Oh, this is Keith, lads, a new sign," and didn't introduce me to everybody. He just said, as I was walking, "Keith, you're over there doing a bleep test." And I just thought, then I rang me agent. I said, Eddie Howe's a bit funny with me, like. And he said, "Yeah, well, I'm not so sure he wanted you, mate, if I'm honest. I think it was one of the floods on the board at Burnley wanted me, so the board sort of forced it through, and I was given to him rather than him wanting me."
Yeah.
And I sort of got that vibe up from the start, to be honest with you.
It's not a good start then, because you're walking into something that you don't feel like you want. It's happened to loads of players. Like you think of Robbie Keane at Liverpool, Rafa, similar enough, and that didn't work out well. But he's obviously not giving you much of a chance, is he?
No, well, the first game of the season we played Watford at home, and he said to me, "Look, I'm not going to play you, son, because you're overweight." Like I said, I played for Ireland and I was on a sauce for a week or so. So he said to me, "You're not going to play, you're overweight." Lo and behold, we're 2-0 down, and he puts me on because we're struggling the opening day of the season, and I score one and I set one up and we draw 2-2. Of course, the Tuesday then, this was on the Saturday, the Tuesday, I started against Peterborough, even though I wasn't fit enough 3 days ago. But I played anyway, didn't play very well. Like, he's still a little bit heavy, still a little bit hungover. And yeah, he after that, he sort of, I told him, he said to me, "You weren't great." I said, "But I'm not ready. You told me I wasn't ready last week." He said, "You're using me words against me." And we just never ever really seen eye to eye. And he made a couple of signings. He brought Junior Stanislas in from Bournemouth, and he'd worked on previously. So when a manager brings in a player he works with previously, especially a winger, a left winger, I was like, well, he's going to play ahead of me. And Ross Wallace was on the other side, so I was like, I'm snookered here again. And yeah, I ended up, I think in the 3 years I was there, I made about 80 appearances, which is not a lot, like when you're trying to get your career back going. But yeah, no, me and Eddie didn't get on too well.
How did his kind of time then end? And then Sean Dyche came in, who I know you still are very close with.
Yeah, I know, I love Sean Dyche. Eddie Howe's reign finished. I think his mother became unwell down in Bournemouth, and he wasn't doing too well. I think 15th, 16th in the league, maybe sort of flirting with relegation, middle of the road. And the club sort of said, listen, we're not going to sack you. And he wanted to go, so he sort of just left. But I think he was on the road to being sacked anyway because he wasn't doing so well. And yeah, Dyche came in, and I remember I was after being at my uncle's wedding in Dublin, and this is Eddie Howe said I could go. I came back and he breathalyzed me on the Monday, and I was still drunk, so he fined me 6 weeks' wages. And this is when he ended up leaving, and Dyche came in. And as soon as Dyche came in, he put his arm around me, said the 6 weeks fine has been squashed. That was under a different manager. You have a clean slate with me. I was with the reserves. He said, you're back with the first team. As soon as you lose your belly, you'll be in the first team. And I was like, fucking hell, somebody here is going to give me a chance. And
someone showing you a bit of interest.
Yeah, and like even then, he started showing me a bit of love. Like when he said to me, when you're fit, you're in the team, I was thinking that could be a token gesture type of one. Like, but after training the next day, he's like, right, come on, keep, we'll go on a jog. I was like, we? He's like, yeah, me and you, come on. And just through Burnley City Centre, having a chat, talking to him about things, and just unloading stuff, stuff that I felt under Eddie Howe, stuff I felt at the board at Burnley. And yeah, he was brilliant. He just put me at ease, and he was like, you don't need to mind about any of that. I'm the person you answer to now, and you're going to have a free crack at it. So yeah, I was at a time where I was ready to finish. I was gone. Like Eddie Howe had asked me to finish. I was 6 months into a 3-year deal, and Eddie Howe had asked me to walk away from it. I was in Marbella with the wife drinking, and I got a phone call while I was over there saying you're playing for the reserves tomorrow. And I was like, what? You can't just tell me I'm in Marbella. He said, well, I never gave you clearance and blah, blah. So I came back. I had like really bad sunburn, and long story short, there was a ball coming for me, and I just moved out of the way. Like rather than chest it, I just leave that. And he's like, get him off, take him off. And I come off, and he's like, son, just give up. You don't want to be here. You won't even control the fucking football. Just give up. And I gave up. I was like, fucking in Marbella yesterday and blah, blah. And yeah, he fucked me down to the reserves, and that was it. We were pretty much done. But when Dyche came in and he started showing me that bit of love, I played another 2.5 years under him, and yeah, I couldn't have seen that happen. I don't think I was even, if Eddie Howe hadn't have left, I probably would have finished a lot sooner than I did. Dyche put 2.5 years, maybe even the 6 months I spent at Barnsley after that was all down to the goodwill of Dyche and making me feel like there is good people in football. So yeah, I'm not saying Eddie Howe was a bad manager or a bad person. He was 33 when he got the Burnley job, so he was very, very young, and I was an awkward one, a very, very awkward one.
He probably had to make his mark with you just because you were a young lad, and he had to kind of show his ground a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, well, look, like I say, I was a weird one. Like I'm older now. I do a bit of coaching, and if I was to try and coach myself and manage myself, I can imagine I'm a fucking nightmare. So yeah, I've every sympathy with Eddie Howe trying to manage me, but I think now he's a little bit older at Newcastle, obviously doing well. I think he'd do a lot better job at it now than he did back then.
Just with Dyche, how did that end at your time at Burnley then?
With Dyche,
there was a deal, wasn't it? There was a deal meant to be signed, and then the board, that was it. Yeah,
well, we about 6 months out from my last year, I had 6 months left, and my agent spoke to Burnley, spoke to Dyche, and he said, they got back and said, yeah, listen, we're delighted with Keith. He's making great progress. He's lost weight. He looks good. He's doing well in the team. So yeah, we're going to give him another deal. We'll give him another deal, but we don't know whether we're going to get promoted or we're going to stay in the championship, so we can't speak finances yet because obviously there'll be different deals. No problem. Okay, so hang tight, Keith, you're getting another deal anyway. Right, no problem. So we progress on and on and on. We beat Wigan in Turf Moor, so we're mathematically up now. So the next day, I was literally about to ring my agent and tell him to go in to Dyche and see what the crack is, and the gaffer calls a meeting that morning, and David Edgar, a Canadian player, had his agent in to see what the story was with his contract, and Dyche went through him. He was like, don't have your fucking agent knocking on my door, grow a pair of bollocks and do it yourself. So I was like, oh, dodged the bullet here. So I knocked on his door. All right, gaffer. He's like, here's a real lad now, come in and talk to me face to face. So like, what's the story? He basically said, listen, he offered me a trial. He said, we're going to bring you back on trial. You go away for the summer, have a month, come back. If you come back slim, you come back running, you come back in good shape, we'll give you another deal. Which obviously in hindsight is not bad, but I went into that room thinking there's a deal there, and although the sort of half was a deal, the half wasn't a deal, and I was concentrating on the negatives, and I was like, well, he did say in the same breath, it's not me, so I'm delighted with you, it's the board that needs convincing. I was thinking, well, if the board aren't happy, then the board aren't happy. There's no point in me fucking sticking around. So we had a bit of a talk, and then it just didn't happen. I wasn't prepared to come back on trial. I've been at the club 3 years. Like I said, played between 70 and 80 games. I was thinking, what more do you need to know? Like, either you want me or you don't. And when they said, come back on trial, that was my answer. I was like, well, right, they don't want me. And it just sort of fizzled out. I still speak to Sean Dyche, the only manager I do still speak to, and very rare we actually speak about football, which is nice. And considering he's such an intense man and loves football, he's even more of a family person, which is lovely. It doesn't come across on the camera too much.
Yeah, well, you started actually seeing him doing more and more podcasts now, and he just seems like a great guy. He just, sound fella.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think he was a Premier League manager just because he's sound. He just seems to laugh a lot of stuff off. Like I remember him even at press conferences with Burnley, and he'd be, messing and taking the piss probably out of himself.
Yeah, but that the one thing I really like, the one thing I still love about Dyche is he doesn't entertain the glitz and the glam of the Premier League. There's lots of people that will walk in and, they sort of walk in like a peacock. Dyche just walks in and he doesn't care that, you're supposed to be this big, I am. I am this, and this is the way it is. And the one thing that he said to me that really stuck with me through my career was, when you get to the front door of the training ground, you take your ego off and you leave it there. You come in here, you're the same as everybody else. We all walk to a certain standard. And there's no, well, I'm more talented than you, so I walk a little bit less. Nah, we're all the same here. And all the players bought into it. And the great thing was that he didn't just say it to the players, he did it as well. When he walked in, he left his ego out there. He came in and, like you said, he would take the piss. He would do fines. He would do the spinning wheel if he did something wrong, he would get punished for it. And yeah, he was brilliant. He was real. I don't know how to explain him. He was a once off. His man management was unbelievable. He was probably the only manager that I wanted to run through a brick wall for. And although, like I always said, fear was a great motivator. It was fear with him. I'd be afraid that he'd grab me by the neck if I didn't play well. But it was more of a fear of disappointing him, because I felt that he'd put so much work into me that I didn't ever want to let him down when I played. And that's probably the one thing that he got that other managers I felt didn't get was, if you treat the human being, the footballer will come with him. But if you treat the footballer, the human being will be left behind. Yeah. And so many managers tried to treat the footballer, didn't really care about me. But Dyche actually tried to get to me, which was made me, have a lasting love for him.
Yeah, well, I see him on the high performance podcast talking about that. It's like the non-negotiables is that when you come in, everyone has to be on the same page and everyone works together for a goal. And he just seems, as I said, he just seems like an absolute gent. And obviously from what you said, and I know he's done favours for you, like coming on radio stations and stuff since. So, fair play to him. And the fact that he still does that and he'll pick up the phone is brilliant. Yeah. Again, he leaves the ego behind, which not a lot of them is in football do. We've both dealt with footballers, and some of them, they think like they'll leave you your message unread for 2 years and then come back to you when they want something. So it's very much like that at Premier League level anyway. But just kind of, so on the back of that, you obviously didn't get your contract because of the board, so you end up leaving. What happens there?
It was a really strange one, because we got promoted. There was a couple of days organised in Marbella for the squad, and obviously me and Dyche, we didn't have a falling out, but we'd sort of, I'm not signing, I'm not coming back on trial. He was trying to convince me to come back on trial. I said no.
So he really believed in you.
Yeah, he did, and it was great. I remember the one big moment that sticks with me with Dyche is we were playing Bournemouth away, and Bournemouth were doing quite well and we were doing well. It was like a race for promotion, and it'd been raining on the Friday night. It was really windy down the south of England, and the pitch was fucking shocking, but it got past. It was playing anyway, and I was on the bench, and Bournemouth were winning 1-0, and we had to get something from the game. And he bringing me on with 10 minutes to go or whatever, and he put his standing on the halfway line. He put his arm around me, and he sort of turned me towards Eddie Howe and he said, go and prove that cunt wrong. Go and prove him that you should have been on the pitch. And I ended up scoring. Ross Wallace crossed and I scored. And I remember just when I looked at him, the smile on his face, it was like I would look at Teddy if he scored a goal. I just remember looking at him and thinking, like, he's happy for me. Like, you don't get that with managers. He was really, really happy. And yeah, it just, when somebody has that interest in you, it just makes you feel 10 feet tall. And yeah, like I say, he's an outstanding bloke, a really nice
It's
fella.
a shame he didn't come into your life earlier.
Yeah.
Maybe, at the Blackburn days or something. Obviously, he's not going to be Blackburn manager, but it's a shame that sometimes in life timing can be the thing that really clicks for you. Yeah. And unfortunately, that just wasn't it.
In the same, what you're saying is right, but I also think that I wasn't ever ready to get help. Eddie Howe did try and send me to Sporting Chance, the Tony Adams clinic for athletes and stuff like that. There was one or two people tried to send me to places, but I wasn't open to it. I didn't think I had a problem because, like I said, my football was still going. I was still getting caps for Ireland. So how do you tell somebody who's playing in the Premier League and getting caps for Ireland that they have a problem? It's very hard to look yourself in the mirror and admit it when you don't have to. It was only when I mentally actually broke that I admitted I had a problem and decided to get help. But yeah, when all the football is still going up and up and the bank account is going up and up, it's very hard to have a real talk with yourself. Yeah,
well, that's because we're going to be coming to that now because that happens to you at Barnsley. So, how did the move to Barnsley come about? I think you went back to Dublin again, did you?
Yeah.
And then went to Barnsley. I think they were the only club looking for you, if that's correct.
Yeah, that's right. I came back to Dublin and like I said, I played probably 32 games, 30 odd games that the season we got promoted for.
Was that your first full season in a while then? Because you were getting dribs and drabs.
Yeah, that was
Blackburn and
the first
Preston.
one, without like going on loan or whatever. It was the first real season and I felt like I played a decent part in the promotion. I scored a goal against Yeovil, scored a goal against Bournemouth, which were important goals. And yeah, I thought when the trial thing for Burnley came, I was like, well, there'll be all sorts of championship clubs looking for me. No, there was nobody. There was Barnsley came knocking, and I remember this is how fucked up the world of English football is. My agent rang me and said to me, Barnsley are looking to sign you. Would you meet Danny Wilson in a hotel in Manchester? I said, yeah, okay, I'll meet him. So I went and met Danny Wilson. As we're chatting, he's obviously, you're brilliant, we need you, we need somebody like you, we'll get promoted next year and blah, blah, blah. So I'm talking to him just as plan B type of thing, like. And the next day he said, this was on the Wednesday, the season is starting on the Saturday, go and do a medical at Barnsley, and just in case you sign, just in case you are happy there, you'll have it there and you'll be able to play Saturday. So you just sign the piece of paper, but you're not actually signing. I was like, oh, okay. My agent didn't turn up, so it was just me.
And you're what age here?
I would have been 24.
Yeah, still relatively young, yeah.
But yeah, before I knew it, I was doing a fucking bleep test and I signed for the club and I was on the bench on Saturday. Mental. Like, I negotiated my own contract talking to them, and yeah, it was just because I dropped out of that top tier, my agent really didn't give too much of a shit about me, so I was like,
hear that a lot,
don't do it yourself, like. And yeah, the move to Barnsley shouldn't have really happened. I should have went and got myself fit and then started looking for the club. But yeah, I came in the door at Barnsley, I was on the bench on the Saturday and how chasing my tail again.
How bad is the off the field stuff at this point then, because you're near breakdown?
It's absolutely out of control. It's I was with me girlfriend down, my wife now, but from my house where I was living in Lytham to Barnsley was like a 200-mile drive. So I used to go and stay in Barnsley for a few days and I just got fucking crazy, like do what I wanted, stay in hotels, women, alcohol everywhere, and yeah, just roll in the next day, do 2 or 3 hours training and do the cycle again, drink, do what I want.
This is why your wife is where she's in Dublin, or
she'd be in Dublin, or she'd even be in the house in Lytham, like 200 miles away.
And is she aware of any of this?
She knew I was drinking really, really heavily, yeah, but she was new to the world of football. She wasn't sure if what I was doing was normal. Is every footballer like this? Is it just him? Is he like?
Just on her. So did you meet her in Dublin, and she came over with you then? Was that before Barnsley or?
No, but me and Leanne, we were friends for years. Like, where we literally live on opposite corners of the street to each other. So my mother's house looks directly at her house, and we knew each other growing up for years, and I left to play for England, play in England, and I came back one summer, and she owns a shop, and I went into the shop to get credit, and I asked her out on a date, and that was it. And like I said, we'd always knew each other, but we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. And what are we now? 11 years together now.
Yeah. So I suppose all that's happening, she's probably sitting there worried, and I know you're probably at the same time. She says that to me, I'm getting away from her. So that must have been extremely tough for her, and maybe you weren't seeing that at the time. I know you've turned things around since, but you probably weren't seeing that at the time. You were probably just like, I don't need the stress. Yeah,
well, like, it's very hard, because like, when you're playing football, you're getting it. It's so intense from every angle, and then you go home, and obviously my wife is really, really worried about me drinking, and as soon as she brings up the drinking, I don't want to hear it, so I'm out the room. So it's a fine balancing act with her, trying to keep me around and give out to me, because I've all the money in the world. I can go and stay in a 5-star hotel and drink myself to death if I like. So
it's walking on eggshells for her.
Exactly, yeah. It was really, really tough for her, and like I said, I find it very hard to understand how she stuck around through it. I really do, but extremely thankful that she did.
Yeah, well, we'll come to why, I suppose, now. You met, was it the Christmas Day was when it got really bad for you?
Yeah, Boxing Day, we had our Stevens' Day, we were playing Preston, Barnsley were playing Preston, and I was allowed to stay in my own house, because the Deepdale was closer to my house than Barnsley was. So yeah, Christmas Day, I remember waking up. I think we were training late, or whatever. But I didn't train Christmas Day. I sent a text message or whatever. But yeah, I'd met them in the hotel next to Deepdale on Boxing Day. But like Christmas Day, I think I had a pizza for me dinner. There was a bottle of Jack Daniels, bottle of Malibu, bottles of vodka, bottles of beer. And I just remember the next morning, I remember waking up face down with like sick and blood, and I think I'd actually pissed myself and everything. It was just the driver knocking on the door trying to wake me up to go to the game, and he eventually came in through the back door, and I went up and had a shower and cleaned myself up, and he's pleading with me, you need to sort this out, Keith, this can't keep going, you're going to hurt yourself. And yeah, I was on the bench that day, and I'd done a couple of doggies, and the peripheral vision on Deepdale, like I couldn't see people in the crowd. It was getting dark, and got a bit of a fright. I ran into the dressing room, and Danny Wilson, the manager, is standing there. I said, Gaffer, I think I have the flu, I don't feel great. Yeah, no problem, son, go and sit on the couch, stay away from the lads, and blah blah. So I walked out of Deepdale and straight onto a plane to Manchester, and fucked off home and never came back.
And so what's your missus thinking at this point?
Well, she didn't see me with the sick and the blood, so...
And I think you said she's at home.
She was in Dublin at the time, yeah, so...
And your kid, did you have kids at this point?
Yeah, we had Jerry Ann, Izzy and Ruby, but obviously Ruby was with our mother, and Jerry Ann and Izzy were in Dublin with their mother.
Yeah, sorry, they're the two I'm talking about.
Yeah, they were all in Dublin, so... The crazy thing was, like, even looking back now, I woke up with blood and piss and sick and everything around me, but that night, I'm back in the piss in Dublin. It's even though I've got such a fright that I've left England, I'm back in the piss. So although I realised the problem, I knew there was a problem, I was still drawn to the drink, and I couldn't, it just had a grip on me. There was nothing I could really do. I was only happy when I was in a pub. I felt I was myself when I was in a pub, and everyday life was becoming harder and harder for me.
And so at what point do you really go, all right, well, here's the issue? When did you really break down then to your missus to then go, right, well, we need to change this? Well,
after I left Barnsley, I probably kept drinking for another 2 years, and this is probably every day now. Even I played for Drogheda, I played for Pats, but I was drunk like most of the lads at Pats will tell you. Nearly every day I'd come in drunk, like I say to Conan Bourne all the time, and he laughs. And in Birmingham, like, I was drunk 90% of the time. Yeah. I think we played in Europe, I wasn't drunk, but yeah, I believe
you played unreal in those European games as well.
Yeah, but it was the only time I got motivated. I felt there was media coming in to do interviews. It felt like a big game, and I felt like it was easy to get up for it. So Yeah, I enjoyed the European games, but like I say, the drink had a big hold on me. But I don't think my wife knew too much. But them 2 years after I came back from Barnsley and was in Dublin, it was literally, she'd go to work, come back, and I'd be in the pub, and I'd fall back into the bed at 2 in the morning and get up the next morning and do it all again. And she started to realise, like, yeah, this is not right. We need to have a chat here. And even throughout me, like, playing in Ireland, I was just getting heavier and heavier and heavier, and I couldn't chase people. People were running off me, and yeah, I was a left winger that started playing centre midfield, to started playing defensive midfield, just because I hadn't got the legs to get around. But I laughed about it and made jokes about it, but really it was the drink catching me, like, that's all.
Yeah, and how are you surviving at that point? Did you just have savings, or?
Yeah, just living off my savings. I think
if you're drinking every day, it catches up on you. As in money wise.
Yeah, I had about, when I came back, I had about $250,000 saved up, and I pissed it all up against the wall, like every last penny of it. Now look, I had holidays.
It's fair play for being able to save that much, but then to piss it.
Yeah, well, I should have saved a lot more. Believe me, I should have been a lot more saved. But yeah, I had about $250,000 when I came back, and like a big bulk of that was the promotion. I think it was about 170 grand for being promoted. So a lot of that was that, and yeah, I went on cruises, went to Vegas, went to Marbella, done all the things that probably most youngsters from the north inner city would do if they got a big lump sum of money. I pissed it all up against the wall and entertained women, stayed in hotels, did whatever I wanted. But yeah, it's wasn't great, but good stories though.
Yeah, I suppose so. But from your like, you've obviously mentioned before, like, you had a sex addiction as well as your were you an alcoholic?
Yeah.
You were, okay. So you had both of those things going on. And did she know that there was other women?
Yeah, to be fair, my wife did. She
and is that not really difficult for her?
Yeah, of course it was. Like, I can only imagine,
Yeah.
The mind boggles when I try and put myself into her shoes of what she must have been thinking throughout this. It's like I said, I really don't understand why she stayed around, but hugely thankful that she did and dug me out of a hole. And obviously having Teddy was a big part of me growing up as a person, and forming responsibility, and it sort of just made me realise, if I'm not going to be here for my kids, who is? And yeah, Leanne is she's an absolute diamond, and it's probably too simple to say, but if Leanne hadn't have helped me and hadn't have stuck around, I'm fairly sure I'd be dead now. So it's black and white as that.
Yeah, jeez. But like from what it sounds like, I believe that everyone should find their Leanne at some point. As a big compliment to her for what she's got, like, put up with. And I think you'd probably admit that yourself, like, without kind of putting you down. So is she the one that kind of says to you, right, look, you've got a problem, we have to fix it? How did that talk go? And then I suppose, how does that lead into life now for you?
Well, she tried so many times. Like I say, from when I finished in England to playing my last game for Pats, she was trying all the time to try and get me to go to therapy. She got me to go to hypnotherapy with the sex addiction, and I would do enough to keep her. You know what I mean? She said, you need to go to this, and I'd go to it, but I wouldn't really be engaged.
So she's jumping through hoops, really. She's
jumping through hoops, and I'm doing bits and bobs, but not really ever wanting to stop drinking. And then when with the sex addiction as well, like I said, I'd done hypnotherapy. I felt a little bit silly doing that. I didn't feel like it helped me. And then all of it, I was going from therapist to therapist to therapist just to try and keep Leanne happy. And then eventually I found this therapist called Evelyn in the IFSC, an older woman, and I spoke with her a few times, and for some reason it just came out, the alcohol, the sex addiction, it all just came out, and I started telling her everything. And eventually my wife then came in and sat in a session, and everything I said, she already knew. I thought I was bottling this stuff up inside. She already knew.
She just needed to hear from you, probably.
Yeah, that was that. She was always saying that to me, Keith. It's the not knowing if you did or if you didn't. It's if you tell me you did, I can deal with it. If you tell me you didn't, I can deal with it. But the grey area is the killer. So yeah, I started on a full disclosure thing in therapy where I told her everything. It was yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and she got a lot of closure out of that, and I think it helped me as well, because all the lies inside me, like I say, you're chasing yourself, you can't remember the lies, mentally you're so fragile. And yeah, Leanne just she just stuck it out and got through the bullshit with me. And yeah, I think she'll always say, like Leanne now, if she was here, she'd say, you know, I always knew there was Keith was inside there somewhere, but yeah, there was an awful lot of shit to get through before she got me.
Yeah, you probably need to show that vulnerability. I hope I said that right, but do you know what I mean? So then you knew then if you could lay that all out, and she's still there for you after all the stuff that happened. Like, she sounds like a pretty amazing person to have in your life.
Yeah, but like I say about the thoughts, like Leanne tried to get me to get help, but I remember going for a bath one night, and I felt the bath, and I was sitting in the bath, and I'd no phone with me, I'd no headphones. Usually I'd listen to something or watch a YouTube video or something, and
so just something to keep you...
Just something to keep me thoughts away. And I didn't have anything this time, and I was sitting there, and I just remember looking at the water, and I started crying, and you know when things just come in, you're like, oh God, I've sobered up here, and everything was coming in on me, and
it's probably a lot of anxiety built up.
Yeah, a lot of everything, just depression, just anxiety would have been a big one, and all the lies, you know, chasing yourself around the place all the time. And I remember, like, my wife heard me, and she came in, and I sort of said to her, listen, I'm ready. I need help here. I'm mentally, you know, and that's the strange thing. It wasn't a physical thing. Although physically I couldn't run around the pitch anymore, it wasn't a physical thing. It was a mental thing. My mind just snapped, and I thought, I can't be going to bed with all these lies in the air, and you know, struggling. Who's going to text the phone next minute, and blah blah blah. I was just living my life terrified. And yeah, when I let everything out, and I told my wife, and I wanted help. Yeah, things started to get better. It took about 4 years of therapy, but you know, once I opened myself up to wanting help and needing help, it was a big part of it.
Yeah, I think that's the key these days, that a lot of people don't do it, and now they're kind of getting to that point where they're hearing so many people like yourself, who I'm sure young footballers would look up to, as maybe not the lifestyle you lived, but in terms of the way that you've turned it around. Whereas other people, like as I mentioned, Paul Gascoigne earlier on, like his career's gone down the drain because of his after football life, kind of with drugs and stuff like that. Seems to get help, and then just again some story comes out where he's you know, broken his alcohol. What's the word? Where he just stopped drinking basically, but he's gone back on it. Like, so again, he's kind of had a setback.
Yeah, but even that, like, that can be very daunting, you know, for somebody who loves to gargle. And like, being in the pub was a big part of my life. But my wife never told me that the goal was to stop drinking. You know, it was always, oh, you know, well, if you miss it today, and you know, maybe miss one day during the weekend. And like, I was captain of the darts team down in my local and everything, you know. I was fully invested in the pub. I loved it. There was any reason to get me out, I was in the pub, and I always felt like I was missing out. You know, if I was in the house, I felt like, oh, they'd be throwing a party up in the pub, like I'm going to miss something. And I don't know what it was. Eventually the penny just dropped, and I remember sitting with the kids, and I just remember thinking, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where the memories are made, not up in the fucking pub, you know. And even now, I'm 5 years this month in November, sober, but you know, I still live my life thinking, you know, disaster's only ever a point away from me. So
you're actually over 5 years, because I think today's the 1st of December.
Oh, sorry, yes, I'm over 5 years now. Yeah, over 5 years. So yeah, look,
congrats.
It's not. It really isn't easy, but you know, nothing in life is, and you know, like I say, with the family at home, and especially with Christmas, like I used to, as a footballer, I fucking hated Christmas. I was always alone, but now Christmas coming around, I love it with the family, and it's just all about making memories. And you know, you don't make memories sitting on exactly. You're sitting on a fucking bar stool up in the pub. You don't make memories up there, or not real memories anyway.
Yeah. I actually, because there was so much in your story that I actually never even got a chance to talk about Ireland, but I'm not going to now, because I kind of want to finish up on how you're doing now. You're working in Virgin Media. That's how I met you properly. Like, and then you're doing bits with RTE. You're commentating, you're doing radio work and all that. So you seem to be, and you're coaching as well. So life seems to be going well for you. You've got your nice family life, and you've got your balance of you do your football stuff then on top of that. I know you do the LOI TV too.
Yeah, like I really enjoy it. It's again, this was probably something that, you know, from the outset I thought, I can't do that. I can't commentate in a game. You know, I can't analyse stuff. But my wife just grabbed the bull by the horns, and she fired out like a blanket of emails to everybody, And we got one back from RTE saying, yeah, well, look, we can get you in on the radio, and Virgin were nice enough to say, oh, we'll give you a co-commentary gig and see how you go. And yeah, it sort of got from strength to strength, but again, that was my wife, because I was very much on the outside thinking, oh, I can't get in there, I won't get in there. And yeah, she chanced her arm and she pushed it, and eventually we seem to be getting little bits of work now, and hopefully in January this is something I can do full time, because I'm sort of balancing it now with me bit of gardening. But yeah, I love it. And even the coaching with Pats on the 17s, although I love being on the pitch, I love doing passing drills, crossing and finishing drills, defensive drills, I love all that stuff, but I love tapping into the players and just seeing where their heads are at. And it's very easy, because at 17, when you turn up and if they're a little bit off it, it's quite obvious to see. And a lot of that is about stuff in the background. So if I can help a child, I wouldn't say family life, but if I can take his mind off that for a certain amount of time or whatever it is, and just give him a little bit of break from whatever depression, anxiety it is. Because Sean Dyche said to me, not footballers, everybody thinks they have perfect lives. They don't have perfect lives off the pitch. So sometimes you have to send the player out there knowing that there's family problems, or it's not 100%, but you have to put them through it. And fans don't see that sort of stuff, but for me, if I can tap into a player's head and somehow help him out a little bit, I'll even make him understand the game a little bit better, and bring him on as a human being. That's the goal for me.
Well, I think I'm not saying it because you're sitting here, but I think you're one of the better analysts within Irish football, and I do enjoy your commentary on games as well, because I think you bring a different insight than some of the others. So I think in that regard, I think that's why you're getting put on more and more gigs. And I suppose there's a lot of players looking to get in there, so you kind of got in there at the right time.
Yeah.
Because you're on a lot of stuff like the LOI TV, then you've got Virgin, then you've got RTE, the podcast, and then you're on the 2FM Game On as well. So you're on pretty much a lot of things there. That I imagine if you're consistently doing that, then with a bit of luck, then in the new year you'll be doing that on the regular.
Yeah, well, look, that's
as well as your coaching.
That's the next aim, is to try and pick it up and take it full time. And it's great. It's great to get really involved in a football match and get down into the stats and the statistics and how you can beat them, how they can beat them, where's the weak links, where can you do that. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter to me. I analyse it, I do everything to it, but the outcome means nothing to me. So it's great to be able to do that with no pressure, because the pressure when you're actually playing, it's on your shoulders. But when you analyse these things, it's there's an air of freeness to it, and that I like, and it's a different tactical side as well. a lot of the analytical stuff, like the jargon you would use when you're analysing something, would be the same jargon you use when you're coaching. So they sort of marry into each other well. So I think it's a good complement to do both.
And I suppose with the coaching, then you're not really getting away from the modern game. It's always changing. Like, there's always new stuff. Pats are quite good, and they're producing a lot of good young players as well. Are you ever fearful? Just I know you're mates with Keith Andrews and stuff like that. So if you may be negative around Ireland or something like that, are you ever fearful that someone comes back and starts giving you? Because I know some people can be like that, where they won't say it. Like we see it a lot with Neville and Roy Keane and that now. And
no, I think, look, me and Keith grew up together. We played for the Irish B team, played for Blackburn together, and Keith Andrews, he was in the media himself. Yeah. So look,
he did hammer a couple of Irish teams.
Yeah, he hammered a couple of people himself. And look, I think with footballers, we take things personally quite a lot of the time. What I know I did when I was playing most things, if a manager didn't fancy me, I would take that personally. But these are just opinions. If I think Ireland should maybe go a little bit more direct or bypass the midfield because we haven't got the players in there, that's just my opinion. I'm not having a personal attack on anybody.
Yeah.
It's just my opinion, and I think Keith understands that. I'm sure Stephen Kenny understands that as well. And look, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. That's all we are. We're all human beings. And I'll shake Stephen's hand, Keith's hand, give them a hug. I want them to win every single game because I'm an Irish fan, but I'm also getting paid to analyse it, and if
give
I have
your opinion,
to
as Roy Keane said the other day.
I'm here to give me opinion.
Yeah, you see that clip?
I did, yeah.
Pursuing it, yeah. So yeah, I suppose we'll leave it at that. I mean, we're an hour and a half in there, so it flew by, despite me being half an hour keeping you earlier on. But listen, Keith, thanks very much for your time. I really enjoyed that, and I'm sure the listeners will as well.
Anytime.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts in the comments if you're watching it on YouTube. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're listening on podcast. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review, and please give it a share. We'll speak to you all soon. Thanks for watching.